Hi, everyone. My name is Liz Perez, and I am here tonight to talk about some really important things. And this important topic tonight for today's town hall for Liz Perez for Vista City Council D2, which we are only days away from November 3rd, the big election day, which we've all been waiting for. Today's town hall is very special to me. Not special, but it's a big part of my life and who I am as an individual, as a mother, and also as a professional. And that's addressing climate change. And I want to be able to do that. I think we can all do this by also addressing building a Vista that is equitable and building a clean energy economy that's inclusive. And these are important key points and what that means. And we'll get into that larger discussion in a few minutes here. And part of my background, I've been in clean energy, in the clean energy industry for about 12 years. And I started my company in the heart of the recession. And when I originally started in the clean energy industry, there were not a lot of women. Within this field. I am a licensed B general contractor, and I started out originally doing mostly taking a look at different projects and what projects could possibly exist, but then looked even further into that and more of the building sustainably structure. And I just fell in love with it because it just mattered to me about our behavior here at home, what happens overseas, and what we do as a nation, and how even our national security, national security, is at risk if we don't change certain behaviors here at home. So with climate change, climate shifts, whatever you want to call it, it is happening. And with that, it is important that we prepare for that, and that's updating infrastructure, that's mitigation within our forests and some of our dry lands here. It's definitely overdue to do this, and do this in a way that's responsible, and also do this in a way that is responsible and respectful to native land. And as a Native American from Norfolk Rancheria, here in California, in the exact center of California, I think it's absolutely appropriate and important to also recognize that the native land that we're here today, I'm filming this from Vista, California, and we're on Le Sueño native land. In regards to that, I think it's really important that we take a look at honoring our native land, being respectful to the native land, and also building responsibly. And that's a holistic view of how we can do that in regards to economics and being responsible, but of course, being responsible to Mother Earth. And that's what we're going to dive into today. And also talk about socially responsible, environmentally responsible. There are absolutely opportunities that exist. It's not that are there opportunities that exist to help us as a city get there. It's when. When are we going to get there? When are we going to do it? Because this is happening now. It exists now. And driving into the future and addressing a lot of the different climate change shifts, however you want to call it. It is happening, but we do need to prepare for our future and to prepare in a way that we are doing this, that we are not vulnerable, and creating that resiliency, which is key, especially these days, as we know, in 2020 with everything we're facing. So enough about me, because we have an amazing lineup of professionals within the environmental industry, within social and environmental justice, advocates and leaders in our industry, and also within the studies of oceanography and marine biology. And I'll go ahead and introduce our first guest, and that's Sonya Robinson. So Sonya Robinson, I met Sonya, I want to say, geez, time goes by pretty quick. I want to say sometime last year, maybe a year and a half ago. Hi, Sonya. Time goes by quick, doesn't it? But Sonya, oh, I think you might be on mute. But Sonya, she's the chair of the NAACP Social and Environmental Justice Chair for San Diego County. And this is an important role, and one that I feel that is so significant, because this involves how do we not only include those within the clean energy industry, but also make our environment a living environment that we can all thrive. And then jobs and so forth.
Great point.
Yes. And so, as a woman, as a Native woman, and also first generation Mexican American woman, I'm very familiar with this and very passionate about this. And so, can you tell me, what are some of the, just kind of dive in a little bit deeper on how we can do this responsibly, and what projects have you done, and where we can also build affordable housing that's structurally responsible to our native lands, right, and also build a sustainable clean energy for our future.
You raised an excellent point, Liz, and I love the term that you use, responsible, socially responsible, right? Mm-hmm. And so just to kind of shed some light on how can you address environmental climate crisis that we're experiencing without addressing the social responsibility or the social justice. So I refer to it as social justice, but I also love your term social responsible, because for one, a lot of people may not be aware of this, but the number one indicator of where toxins are located is race. So unfortunately, the marginalized communities, the Black communities, the brown communities, the just in general, like I mentioned, the marginalized communities oftentimes bear the most weight and the environmental issues, the environmental injustice issues, if I should be more specific, are within those communities, but yet they have contributed the least to this issue. So, and then you mentioned just a moment ago about affordability, right? And we all know that San Diego County is one of the least affordable places to live in the country. So the affordability issue is definitely something that impacts not just the marginalized communities, it impacts our working family communities, it impacts all of the ones that have not reached that 1%, right? Just in kind of keeping it real, right? Yeah. So I believe in addressing these issues, there's many different prongs that we can look at. So when you look at the clean energy and the clean energy economy, for one, it has already very well documented that renewable energy is the fastest growing economy in the world. So not just here in San Diego County or the state of California or throughout the country, but in the world. So making sure that when we're looking at the clean energy economy and the opportunities that come with that, looking at reform, relief, as well as recovery. And that is also the framework that's within the Green New Deal.
Right. And absolutely important right now, especially during these times, and taking a look at this. And what that means is, when I hear that, is more of workforce development opportunities, paid workforce development opportunities, as we drive our city into the future, as we drive our state and nation to the future, right? And that's creating that resiliency, the energy security, and that's absolutely important. And these are all those key points. And I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. So in regards to trades, as we know, with COVID-19, there are definitely gaps on what we make here in America, what we do here in America. So one of my initiatives, strong initiatives, is to bring back Made in America, where we make our own technologies here.
Right.
And we're here in San Diego County, one of the largest military installations here within the nation, both Marine
Right.
and Navy, and building that America back. And we absolutely can, and create that resiliency here. Not just, I'm thinking broader scale, but that's what I would love to see. Now bring it back home. We start here local, but when we're talking about building the energy economy, be that hub and spoke, if you will.
And so, San Diego's definitely in that great position, I believe, as you mentioned, as far as being that hub. So not only does it have that presence with the military, which we honor the service, we also know that there are some, other outcomes from that. San Diego County is also the second largest county in the state of California. So with California being the most populous state across the union, LA County, of course, is the largest. Second is San Diego County. So as you're mentioning, as far as that clean, green economy, that I am working really hard to make sure the voices and representation matters, right? So from even a cultural adoption strategy, that really can help transform what that makeup looks like, and including people that look like me, including people from my community, as well as the other greater community. So as you mentioned, with San Diego County being able to lead that way, I know that we have the talent, we have the capability, we have the drive. And if you look at the different policies that have recently been passed over the last block of years, even if you just take 5 years or even recently, our state is leading, but as well as cities in our county, the city of San Diego, as well as we also need to make sure that the other supporting counties or cities, or not counties, but cities, are also on board for that green economy future, because our renewable energy, as I mentioned before, is the fastest growing economy in the world. And so we need to make sure that we are leading from the energy of our future.
Absolutely. And that's the key, is continuing to push ahead, but also push ahead to where we're not leaving people back.
Absolutely.
Right? And that's happened
That's the history. That's the history. If we're going to keep it 100, that's the history.
So we're talking about, like, historically leaving some, populations back, communities back. And the key is how do we all thrive? And we all thrive as a community, as a county, as a state, as a nation, if we all succeed. And that's the key. So I thank you for that. I want to invite our next guest, and I'm going to circle everybody back in here, is Kristine Orosco. And I am so honored to invite Christy, and she was recommended by several within the Native community. And I'm proud to announce that she'll be one of the first Native Americans to graduate under the master's program at UCSD with Scripps Institution of Oceanography for Marine Biodiversity Studies. And what Kristine brings to the table is exactly what I was talking about in regards to honoring the native land, respecting the native land, and building responsibly, socially responsibly. And right now, we don't get to see Kristine, because if anybody knows tribal country, the reception is not the greatest, but we can hear Kristine. Kristine, are you there?
Yes, thank you for inviting me, Liz.
Of course, of course. This wouldn't be a party without you, a discussion without you. So thank you, thank you. And and when we're talking Native, we're talking also responsibly and honoring the land. And that also goes as deep as our spirituality as natives too, because Mother Earth is everything. Everything is connected, and that's how we view things, and everything that our behaviors and what we do right now connects the dots in the future. And with that, and I'm sure you might have heard a little bit of our discussion, how do we bring our community together, strengthen our community in the face of climate change?
Yeah, thank you, Liz, for having this discussion. It's really important time. I've been working at Cal State San Marcos. We have a class every year called Community Ethnobotany, and we really focus on educating the importance of open space in San Diego County and in North County. We do a lot of projects, and San Diego County is the second most biodiverse county in the nation, just under one county in Hawaii. And we are blessed with a very unique and biodiverse Mediterranean climate. And Vista is located in a very important microclimate. And there are many important threatened and endangered species all throughout our county. But what that highlights is the need for this biodiversity. What that translates to in our day-to-day life is that the the environmental protections are so important because they protect that uniqueness, and that uniqueness is essential to the sustainable future that we're talking about today, about having a resiliency in the face of this climate change for future generations. So by having open spaces like the city of Vista does, and Southern California is so proud to have in our county here in San Diego, by continuing to promote that and promote access to all demographics, it ensures that we have resiliency in the face of these facts we know that are going to happen. We know now the models are predicting, the level of the sea rise and the temperature fluctuations. We've already seen it this year. We've broken records in Vista for temperatures, and in North County, all over, all kinds of records broke, and we're entering another drought winter, they're telling us. So it's an important time for us all to get together and strengthen the community in the face of these challenges. And that's where the resiliency is going to come from. That strength of all of us facing the realities and preparing our children and our children's children for these realities that are coming as far as climate change goes.
Absolutely. And one of our key points, and I'm sure you're familiar with this, is planning and building for 7 generations. And that's important. And that's a very, how would you say, long view to do things, but it's important to look outside of this moment. And as you mentioned, our children's children moving forward. And that's kind of where we're at right now here in Vista, is where 100 years ago, 70 years ago, a lot of the infrastructure, I would say, a portion of the infrastructure was built. Not all of it was built. And we are at a place where we absolutely do need to upgrade that infrastructure. And as we do that, we definitely need to keep in mind what the climate shifts are going to look like in the future, and how do we train our local workforce, which is absolutely important, and also include our small businesses as part of all of these projects moving forward as a city. And as we take a look at building a resilient city and a smart city for the future, it is absolutely important that we also have smart leadership that understands how to build a city for our future. Not only,
That's
yeah, there you go. Thank you. Go ahead.
That's a really great highlight there, Liz. I really like the highlights there. It's about building smart. It doesn't have to be, limiting development or limiting environmental protections. There's new and strategic ways that we can go about, and like we're all talking about, the clean energy development, alternative building methods, all these different, smart technologies, leveraging the technologies so that we're not compromising and feeling that there's a division. We can make more unity if we all are on that common page.
And a part of that smart city piece is definitely planning, mitigation, and also taking a look at whenever we do have these rolling blackouts or fire emergencies where we don't have electricity. It's also important to take a look at bi-directional EV chargers. Right now, we do not have a fleet of electric vehicles for our city. And there are state grants and federal grants. I understand in the wake of COVID-19 that some of these fundings may dry up and they may take longer to even fund or be available. But while they are available, it is absolutely important to take advantage of these opportunities. So with that, I'm taking a look at just a couple of projects I'm working on currently or have worked on in the past are residential and commercial backup battery storage. And this like almost never happens, but because of all of the recent wildfires that we're seeing here in California, there is at no cost grants available. I think the commercial grant and governmental grant, basically non-residential grant dried up. So there's not any more funding with that. No more funding. It's gone, unfortunately. But I'm glad that it was utilized. And so basically, if there is a threat of a fire, there is backup battery storage. And also along with that is solar. So that's like a separate grant. So understanding these grant structures and different funding, public-private opportunities as well, taking a snapshot of that, we have to creatively construct our resiliency as a government. And there is, and people kind of laugh sometimes when I say that, creativity within government. It does exist. It can exist, but there are these opportunities happening now. As a matter of fact, I was actually at the San Diego port or Coronado last week to be a part of a mini documentary for some of the work that I was involved with, the electrification of the port with my company. And why that's so significant, because it's an historic project, because it was a huge undertaking about eliminating all of the diesel vehicles at the San Diego port and electrifying them. That's a big undertaking. And then also changing that human mindset of, well, I don't hear an engine, and also how to maintain the different machines, and also forklifts, and all. There was a whole undertaking involved, and also involving back to inclusiveness and hiring local.
So Liz, if I may, I just wanted to make a comment, and that is when you mentioned looking at 7 generations ahead of time, I'm like, I was already sold on you as being our next city council, but having that much of a visionary that you understand that it's decisions you make today, the ripple effects and the impacts it will have, not just in 5 years, but in generations ahead.
Yes.
And that's what we need. And when you're talking about, looking ahead of how the actions and decisions we make today, how does that impact generations that come, after us, as well as the electric, suite and the creativity and the opportunities. I mean, truthfully, if you want to think about it, it really takes people, power, and policy. And to have you in a
Love it.
position,
People want
yes, I mean, that's where it's at. And so to have you in a position to actually drive that policy towards a clean energy future, and as well as having a clean energy economy, that's what we want, right? That's what constituents want. We want our leaders to sit in the driver's seat and take bold and courage to stand for what's right. So you've got me sold.
Thank you for saying that. And this is my passion, so I don't want to like steal the thunder from our next guest. But before I introduce Tiffany, I do want to say one thing. In terms of bringing our community together, it's also about building parks, recreation, walkable spaces, bike lanes, sidewalks. Of course, we want beautiful parks, but why not take it a step further of having parks that talk about our natural state and also our history, Native American history, and the history of that land, and the history of the natural resources that exist today, that existed, and we will continue to ensure that they exist today. So that's important. That's like a no-brainer. That's when they say that the common sense factor, check that box for sure. Okay, so our next guest, we're gonna invite Tiffany, and Tiffany, she is running for Vallecillos Water District in San Marcos. Yes, and so she's a scientist. I love science, and you have to just tell me more. And one of the things I actually want to hear also is, we're talking about, I know Christy had mentioned that we're going to be heading into a drought this cycle coming in fourth quarter, I believe, right? That's what I heard, Christy?
Correct. This winter.
Yeah. Okay. So, that's just another thing we have to prepare for amongst everything else. And we're going to be the most resilient, human race after this year, aren't we? But as long as I know, I'm telling you. But as long as we have the right leaders, smart leaders in place, like Tiffany, and how can we, yes, how can we address water equity as we're addressing climate change and talking about our communities as a whole? So just wanted to hear your thoughts on that.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored to be here with these remarkable women. And I've heard so many wonderful sort of sound bites, but also very clear thinking and very complicated thinking about water and equity. As Liz mentioned, I'm a candidate, of course, for a water board position. And, one of the things as a candidate for a water board position who is environmentally minded and is focused on also equity is that, we have to think about how can we source our water in a way that's sustainable. Because as I mentioned earlier, one of the key indicators of water shortage, water cleanliness, water quality is race. And so we have to be mindful of that water is a finite source. And when we are sourcing it, we need to make sure that we can continue sourcing it from the sources that we get it from. So one of the things that is going on in San Marcos and Vallecillos, and I'll just take a couple of minutes to explain where our water comes from, is that we get a certain amount of water from the Metropolitan Water Authority. We get a certain amount of water from the ocean, and we get a certain amount of water from Olivenhain, which is another municipality. The water that we get from the ocean comes from the Carlsbad desalination plant. And it's a large operation, and there's a lot of debate around the environmentally friendliness of desalination. Desalination in and of itself is not a bad thing, but there are ways that it can be done in a way that is more environmentally friendly. And so these are some of the things that I'm thinking about, and some of the things I'd like to implement as a water director. For example, and I'm sure Kristine knows all about this, and she could probably speak to this much better than I can, but when you remove water from the ocean and you put it through the desalination process to filter out all of the saline or the salt and all of the precipitates, then it undergoes a process, but all of that stuff comes out. It has to go somewhere. And a lot of times it's like a concentrated mass and it's ejected back into the ocean, and it really messes with the biocosm of where that is then deposited. So there are ways that we can investigate to try to make that a more environmentally friendly process. Desalination is also a very energy intensive process. And so one of the ways that we could potentially make that more environmentally friendly is to try to cut down on the energy usage by perhaps installing solar panels or something like that. Vallecitos has, I was actually in the Vallecitos meeting tonight. I think I might have been the only member of the public that was there. They're not well attended. And I'm sure we'll talk about that later as a way to get involved. But installing solar panels, making sure that the way that we run our operations is more environmentally friendly. So those are a couple of ways to make sure that it's more sustainable. As far as equity goes, making sure that we have enough water, making sure that our water is affordable, making sure that everyone has access to it. There are over 2 million people in the United States right now that don't have access to clean water. And I'm not just talking about Flint, right? People in Poway just last year didn't have access to clean water because of something that happened there. There are people in Philadelphia that haven't had running water in a long time because they couldn't pay their bill. And now they're $26,000 in debt. So making sure that we are that we have policies that are not punitive, overly punitive. Yes, public utilities they have to be able to run themselves, but we need to make sure that our policies, when folks are struggling, we need to be able to make sure that we can help them in a way that is not punitive, and really sort of take a good faith measure to make sure that all of our citizens have access to water, good, clean, quality water. It's not divided by district, it's not divided by zip code, it's not divided by neighborhoods that are more impoverished than others. And right now we don't have that. So there's a lot of room for improvement.
I agree with you 100%. And taking a look at this through the lens of a Navy veteran that's been in the middle of hostile areas, and I understand that I've heard this several times. They say oil dependency has definitely caused several wars over those type of resources, but definitely water is our next resource war, unfortunately. And so we have to keep in mind of this moving forward and be mindful of that. In regards to clean water and zip codes and access to availability, and I heard you say zip codes, Tiffany, I wanted to bring in just kind of, and this isn't on the, one of the things that we had talked about, but I'm sure Christy can chime in on this, in regards to tribal country and our water access and clean water access as well. Did you want to add any comments on that, Christy?
Well, there's a state recognized band in Vista, the San Luis Rey Band of Mission Indians, and they are active and protect watersheds and other important ecological and culturally relevant sites, significance to their tribe. And in the North County, we follow the same watershed. I'm just upstream from this watershed. So the San Luis Rey watershed that Vista's in provides an important resource for people all over the region. And there are many challenges on federal Indian reservations, as well as indigenous resources, such as resources that are needed in the watersheds of North County all the way to the coast. So, there are many issues surrounding that, but I think what's important is that everyone have the opportunity to be at the table, to have input, to say what are the impacts and to have meaningful mitigation. Earlier we talked about there's limited spaces, there's limited water. So let's make our impact positive. Let's make these mitigation measures meaningful.
Yes, yes, and respectful to the land, and also keeping safety in mind, and also those that live in that environment in mind as well, all while bringing in our community. There's a whole lot of work we have to do, for sure. And taking a look at everything. I just want to also talk about some of the other things happening here. There's just so much in it, and I have to stay. We all, as you know, we all have to stay so, extremely positive and during these times, and excited, because you know what? There is change. And I'll tell you why. Because it's right here. Look at us. Here we are. This is what we're doing. Years ago, I hadn't seen any women in the clean energy field. I was usually the only one at the table. Now there's several. I'm a general contractor in the field building these type of projects, not talking about it, but building it. Yes, we need more women builders. I don't want to be the only one out there anymore. That's the next move. Okay. We need more Sonyas, more Kristies, more Tiffany's in the world to keep driving this. And yes, men, you too. It just happens to be a woman panel. Okay. We didn't plan it this way. Just these are the experts in the field. So, it just happened to be that way. And I just want this to be open and a real discussion as possible, I guess, in a view type manner, I guess, if you wanted to call it like a talk show, if anything. But, not only are we facing a drought, but we also have rising temperatures. And, taking a look at this, how does, Sonya, this is for you. How does zero emissions help stimulate an equitable energy economy? Taking a look at this and with reducing gas emissions, and we're talking about inclusion, and we're talking about environmental justice, social justice. How does that play into all of this?
So it really does. And I appreciate you asking that question because, for one, we know that there's laws that the state has passed, right, for zero emissions. So we have a net zero emissions that is legally binding. So all buildings, literally going forward, have to be like a net zero from an emissions perspective. And also here within like our San Diego County area, we know that the city of San Diego has within their climate action plan to reduce emissions to have 100% renewable energies by 2030. We know there's other that includes 2035. Now, one of the reasons why this helps to stimulate our economy, because it opens up a whole new industry, as we're also making sure that we're good stewards and that we are tending to Mother Earth, right? As my son would say, just to add a little pop culture in there, he would say, be kind to your mother, talk about Mother Earth.
Love it.
Kind of add a little humor to this. So we have literally some binding policies that we really need to get to. So from a decarbonization, as you mentioned before, when we look, a lot of people don't think that energy is essential as well, but we don't think how is that, how it impacts our lives, how is it generated, how is it, transmitted. And so making sure that we decarbonize our lifestyles, as you mentioned, as far as having electric vehicle suites. I love the fact that you're so forward thinking on this. And I would love to help you in getting a full, like our bus line up here in North County, right?
Yeah.
We should be able to have electric buses that are running that will reduce those emissions. And so providing those opportunities provides a whole nother industry that also will help create that upward mobility and from the workforce, as you're mentioning, training, development, and just overall benefiting our communities.
Yes, absolutely. And the other thing too is the electric bikes, electric scooters, kind of to get to wherever you need to go. I know from working in Sacramento, they had a lot of those there for sure. And especially when I needed to be somewhere on time, I would walk, but I had to be somewhere at a certain time frame. There was the electric bikes for rent. So, I mean, taking a look at that, there's even bringing in that economy. And I'm just going to go ahead and before I bring it in for discussion, not discussion, but questions from the audience, one thing I want to make very clear. Super clear. The only way our voices are going to get heard, the only way that those from the top level of decision making, policy making, even hear of the issues that we're having within our communities, and I say we, our diverse communities, our brown and black communities, our single mother communities, our single parent communities, single income communities, the large family, the only way is if we involve ourselves. That's the only way we're going to have a seat at the table. Meaning, whether that's showing up, volunteering, being a part of the discussion, to actually being at the table and being a decision maker and understanding that experience and making the change that needs to happen locally, county, state, federally. That's the only way we get heard and how things drive forward for change. We have to be at the seat of the table. Otherwise, it's business as usual. And we know what that looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up to any questions that our community has out there. I don't see the questions. Laura, are you available? Laura? I don't hear her. Okay. So I wanted to know if there was any questions. I'm not sure if she's available. I'll try her one more time. Maybe she's on mute. I don't hear her. Okay. Well, with that, let me actually just see. Okay, there you are. Okay.
Questions are on the monitor right now.
Okay. Okay.
So, great lineup list. These are issues that need resolution involving all those impacted.
Yes. And having our voices heard, being a part of the discussion is absolutely needed. All these things. I know we all have busy lives. Right now is absolutely different times for all of us. And but more than ever, this is the time. If you're going to show up, this is the time to show up. This is the time to show up. Because if you're tired of that leadership, or you're tired of the same old, this is the time to show up. Because there is a seat at the table for you right now.
Here's a second question. How have non-indigenous and invasive plants affect the environment?
Kristine?
Well, there's some really great gardens in the Vista area that I've been involved with helping restore and put interpretive areas for the community. So anyone, if they just Google, native plant gardens in the area, you'll be directed to quite a few locations. Cal State San Marcos has done a great job in collaboration with this. One of our first sites was in Vista at the Indian Rock Garden. And so basically, to answer the question, invasive plants, we see issues, on a small scale all the way to a large scale with different plants that have been introduced in San Diego County. We see impacts from eucalyptus on the water basin, on the on our aquifers. We see ice plant collapsing the bluffs at the coast. We see non-native species eating some of the native species that impact the whole ecosystem. So there's a wide range of issues, but I think the most important thing is that the native landscapes provide temperature regulations that we really need in the face of this climate change. By preserving the ecological balance, we can actually help to restore the hydrologic systems that are in place, and also the open spaces that help regulate our temperatures here. So we can actually do quite a bit by just preserving the plants and animals in our local areas.
100%, 100%. And that's why I chose to live here after my transition from the Navy, because it's just beautiful. I love the hills, and the hummingbirds here in Vista are just absolutely gorgeous. I mean, we're right here in San Diego County. Creator created this, and it's up to us to protect it, and protect it in a way that it can also build opportunities as well for those. And I see a question: how can we help in the short term? In the short term, I'm taking a look at, there's, once, right now, this is a town hall discussion, Liz, for City Council District 2. And I do plan on winning. And once we're there, and I've talked about it, is having committees, a diverse committee around each focus, and not me choosing who's going to be on my committee in my circle, and I'm hearing the same voices, but also asking, I want to have a lottery type of system, depending on how many people want to be a part of that committee. But to me, that creates that inclusiveness. I'm just speaking out loud. I don't even know how that will go. But one thing I don't mind speaking out loud is I am going to win. And I know that there's going to be a lot of change moving forward, because our earth needs it. We need it here as a community. We need more inclusiveness. We need that togetherness. And I'll tell you, I know this is a serious topic, but let's get to some fun stuff. So the fun stuff is taking a look at what.
Real quick, can I just respond real quickly to the person who asked how can they help in the short term? I believe that the way they can help is to vote for you. And if they can't vote, if they're not in your district, then they contribute to your campaign. So to get people like you in office to help people in our, like us, right? So that's what my take on how we can help in the short term.
Yeah.
Is get you elected, get Tiffany elected. That's how we can help in the short term. We have 2 weeks.
So thank you for that. I got to shift my brain sometimes, like whatever, in regards to, thank you for that. Yes, that's a good plug, because yes, we need to get elected in order to make this change. And like what you had mentioned, I wrote it down here. Geez, where is it? It's people power policy, right? People power policy. The only way we can get there is electing the people to have the power to make the policy. That's how all this works. So we understand what needs to happen, because we're doing it today as a professional in this industry for almost 12 years now. And I understand what needs to go into play. Now, I see the question there, but I wanted to talk about some fun stuff, is the farm to fork piece. Having a closed off section in Vista, starting off one night, and talking about what Vista was originally built to do. And we actually still have farms here to this day, bringing fresh food and showing it off. And we can do that even during these times right now. We're already eating outside. And we can plug in that diversity, that art through food, the culture through food, and conversation through food, and music, bringing us together through food. I love food. I'm just can you tell? So especially fresh grown local food. by our local farmers and also our local businesses here and our chefs and showing off their skills. And I'd love to get ideas, please. But, just imagine that. Imagine that. So, I mean, coming from my Navy perspective and all the different countries, I've been to 23 different countries, both Navy and travel, leisure travel, and just enjoying that food and that culture and understanding the history behind that food. And so I think that's something to celebrate. Not I know that's something to celebrate. We can combine all of this holistically. And again, it takes that leadership in order to do that, and that creativity in order to do that. So that question regarding transportation, can I see that again? Laura, I didn't. I'm not sure she's there. Do you remember the question, ladies?
I can read it for you. It says,
No, not that one. It was another. It was I think it was Jim Rickenbaugh. I can't see all the questions. They kind of come and go. Oh, here we go. How can a transportation plan for Vista address climate and equity issues? Well, definitely a transportation plan we do need to have in place. One of the things, as I mentioned, was having even electric bikes or bikes in general, bike paths, walking paths, which are absolutely in lack of within our city. I know that for years our city has talked about building this, but there's been a lack of this. And so it hasn't happened. And also within the climate action plan, there's been little action. And to be very frank, it's been bare bones minimum just to meet the requirements. And I think there's an opportunity, there's such a missed opportunity to get on board to not only address the climate action plan, but also take it a step further and do the things that we're talking about. In regards to transportation also, we can take a look at, instead of building gas stations and fast food restaurants here locally, we can take a look at building infrastructure for charger stations. I think the only one I've ever seen here in Vista is actually off Main Street. Not quite off Main Street. It's downtown area. And other than that, I haven't seen any other charging vehicle stations. And I was a owner of a 2011 Nissan Leaf, and I transitioned that vehicle. But in any case, it was difficult to find a charger station. It is very difficult, and a charger station that is operable. That my app says it's working, but then when I get there, it's not working. And so, it's important that we do build this infrastructure. And let's see, U.S. veteran elders would love. Oh yeah, definitely. We need more walking paths for sure. And even for all of our dog lovers, our dog walkers in the area, I have 3 dogs. So, all of that. Definitely we definitely need a plan in regards to sooner than later. And also that involves safety, because because of these roads, because of the infrastructure, we need to update it, because there's a lot more cars, which means a lot more safety issues to our pedestrians and also our cyclists out there. And I know this.
Can I say one other thing? Is I just see this, how can we help? So I believe that they're already going to vote for you, or may have already, donated to your campaign. So when Liz brings up this policy and she brings it before the city council in Vista, we have to provide that cover for her. We have to show up in numbers. We have to show up at the meetings. We have to petition and show that the people of Vista want the policies that you put forward. So that's another way we can help from a short term, midterm, long term, is to make sure we support her on the policies that she will bring through for the residents in Vista.
Thank you for I'm just love it. I love it. Thank you. But yes, we have to show up in numbers, right? We have to have the seat at the table. We want a healthy Vista. We want a thriving Vista, a strong Vista. a resilient Vista. So why not encompass it all into one? And that's addressing climate change, and the rest takes off from there. And that's just the beauty of where we're at. And before we call it a night here, I want to have a closing statement with Sonya, Kristine, and also Tiffany. How would you like to close this off? Sonya?
And Sonia.
Okay, I was going to wait for one of them. So as I stated before, I definitely do believe in public policy, public power does change policy. And I do believe we're at a cusp, as Liz mentioned, of making positive change towards a clean energy, equitable economy, as well as we're improving. We see that we've had extreme waterfalls, extreme weather conditions. So the science is there. And now that we hear that we're about to go to a drought, these extreme issues impact where we live and impacts our communities. And so I would say, again, we have to elect our elected officials to make sure that they will put forth and support the policy to protect us. So vote for Liz, vote for Liz Perez. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for saying that.
And also make sure you vote for Tiffany as well. For the we need people like her at the water board. So definitely make sure that you get her, get the vote out for her as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
And this is Kristine.
Tiffany.
A closing statement here with Kristine. I just want to say I saw a lot of the comments on the chat, and it's true what people are saying. We need meaningful mitigation, and a lot of times this has to come from elected officials. And so I think that we're on the right track here, supporting people that are working on creative solutions. And I think it's an important time to look at what some of those solutions are. So thank you for having me.
Yes, we are definitely, I know it sounds cliche, but we're stronger together, aren't we? Like really, like totally, like this is the time to show up. And this is your time, Tiffany, to close this out. No pressure.
Thank you again. So I just want to amplify what Sonya and Kristine have said about voting. And that is something that we can all do. And it's coming up very soon. I would say vote for people that reflect your values. Vote for people that are environmentally minded. And then hold them accountable. That's what's really, really important. Liz and I are in this because we want to serve the public, and we need your guidance, and we need for you to hold us accountable, and we need to hear your concerns too. So participate, vote, but don't stop there. Participate, attend the meetings, go to the city council meetings, go to the water board meetings. That's the way that you can have the biggest voice, and that's the way we can hear that big voice. So thank you, ladies. It's been such a pleasure and an honor.
Thank you for all being here. And I love that statement, because something I did learn when I was in the Navy was constructive criticism. But I don't know if that's what you'd like to call it, but in a way, I always found it more as mentorship. How can I be better at my job? How can I be better in my career? How can I move forward and be a better leader in general? And I think right now, again, is a critical time. No, I'm not going to know all of the answers. I'm not going to have all of the solutions. I'm not going to even pretend to. But I do need you, Vista. And that starts with showing up at the table. And showing up at the table in a way is voting for Liz Perez, me, as your city council member in 2020. And then we can move forward. But as Tiffany mentioned, stay involved, continue to give any guidance, advice, mentorship, to continue to move our city forward in a way it's an inclusive city as we address climate change and build an equitable energy economy. And thank you so much, everyone. Don't forget to vote. We're days away. Let's do this. Vote for Tiffany. Vote Liz Perez for District 2 Vista City Council. Thank you.